Okay, this is an important one. I've done a couple of videos talking about kind of maladaptive communication, but what I've not done is talk about parenting in maladaptive dynamics, and this is something I'm currently dealing with. I'm not a family systems expert. I'm not a therapist. I'm speaking from experience. Now, in other videos, I've talked about, personality disorder traits and personality pathology making up a significant portion of my personal history. That's correct. It would be possible to apply clinical terminology to those dynamics. I'm going to try and avoid that. I'm also going to try and avoid indicating who these people might be. But I'm gonna try in an anonymous way to sort of talk about strategies that you can use to protect children from the maladaptive behaviors of adults. And I'll give you some concrete examples. It's going to be a very short video. I'm just going to sort of highlight where the issues can be, how children tend to respond to them in my experience, and primarily from an experiential and a psycholinguistic viewpoint. I'm going to say this is how I'm dealing with it. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm not saying it's the best way. I'm saying this is how I'm currently dealing with a bit of a balancing act, right? So my daughter said to me today, have you noticed that someone is staring at us a lot? And this was a significant moment for me, because I have long been concerned that this behavior would start to imprint on my daughter. So I said, yeah, this person does that a lot, but don't worry, it's not your fault. It's not about you. So what I'm doing is I'm responding to the anticipated negative outcomes that arise from this behavior in my daughter. I'm anticipating she's going to be very sensitive at 5 years old to prolonged staring that does not have resolution, right? Where the loop isn't closed. So she's like, well, why is this person staring? What does it mean? I'm trying to close that loop, that interpretive loop, and say, don't worry. That behavior belongs in that person, and it's theirs. And there is no need for you to think that you've done anything wrong or you need to take any responsibility for it. Right? Second example. Today, somebody, again, in my family system close to me, started giving my daughter instructions. Go and put your coat on. Where is your coat? Where is it? And so I responded again to my daughter. And I said, oh, your coat's in my car. Don't worry, we'll get it. Again, I'm buffering. And then later today, I was asked a question about a decision that I've made. And I said, oh, my decision is this. And I was met with a series of very negative nonverbal messages that were aggressive in their undertone. And I have observed a stable pattern of intimidation in this relationship over a period of 30 years. And the catalyst for me was that my daughter was present. And I was like, I am not having my daughter exposed to behavior of this kind in a modeling context. I'm not leaving this unaddressed because I don't want to implicitly normalize intimidation as a means of influencing other people or as a means of managing emotions. So we had the conversation. I said, you need to calm down. And I've had 30 years of this, and it stops now. The staring, the intimidation, the aggression, it stops. Right? And this was reframed as admiration. And I said, I'm a fucking communications analyst. Right? And that was a significant moment today. That was a fundamental renegotiation of a long-standing power asymmetry. So those are examples of buffering maladaptive communication in relation to children, and also re-establishing power asymmetries in family relationships. So I'm offering this as a starting point for people who are noticing that there is something wrong in the family system on a communications level, and who might feel trapped or powerless or like they can't protect their kids from this kind of influence. I'm saying you can, not always. I don't think it's possible to do it always, but I think you can definitely offer some protection. And if you get to the point where buffering is no longer working, then you need to start looking at other things, like limiting contact and that sort of thing. But for now, I'm keeping a very close eye on it. But that's some vocabulary for you to use to make sense of your experiences. If you're stuck in a situation like this, it is incredibly draining. It's incredibly taxing. And there are lots of, tensions involved in managing this kind of stuff. But, there are ways around it, and there are resources you can go to that can give you some ideas about how to manage this. In the case of here's another example. My daughter was asked in my presence by an adult, "Are you going to look after me when I'm old?" I believe at the time she was about 3 or 4. This is not the kind of adult responsibility and adult psychology that you want to burden a child of 3 or 4 with, right? Think about what's involved in that. A child thinking about obligation to a care role in the future, feelings of guilt, feelings of all of that stuff. Very unhealthy, very problematic thing to do to a child. So I dealt with that straight away. I said, this adult can look after themselves, darling. They do not need you to look after them. That's not your job. Right? So the strategy that's worked for me between the ages of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is buffering. And it's addressing the child, not the problematic adult. It's saying, I'm dealing with the impact on my child. I'm protecting my child from this kind of talk and this kind of influence and the internal monologue that it's likely to trigger. Right? I'm not dealing with the problematic adult. I don't have time for that shit. I'm dealing immediately with the consequence as it is located in my child. At some point, there may be an escalation of these behaviors where buffering may not be sufficient, and I may have to renegotiate the terms of those relationships in order to protect my child. But I'm telling those stories so that you can have some vocabulary. That's the main point of this, right? I'm still dysregulated from today's exchanges. I'm still a little bit unsettled and a bit like, that was dark. That was very dark. And some long-standing familial scripts have been resurrected. So I'm going to have a hot bath and chill the fuck out and have a really nice stream tonight playing Onimusha. But I've got my eye on certain people. So, yeah. But I wanted to make this so that if you're in this situation, if you're like, there are people around me who are influencing my child in ways I don't like, and I can see the effect manifesting in my child's behavior and speech, and therefore probably thoughts, then, you know, some of the things I've said in this video might give you some search terms or some places to go looking, and might give you an indication that there is stuff you can do, even if you feel like there isn't. Yeah. But yeah,